Wait a moment. Stop what you're doing right now and listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you may completely change how you think about aging, cancer, and the power sitting quietly in your kitchen right now. For decades, we have thought about how the Japanese live longer than Americans. Western medicine handed us pills, procedures, and pamphlets. But in Japan, a country where people routinely live past 90 with sharp minds and strong bodies, there is a morning ritual so simple, so affordable, and so scientifically validated that researchers at Harvard Medical School are now calling it one of the most powerful anti-cancer DNA repairing practices ever studied in human aging. And almost nobody over 50 in America is doing it. Today, I'm going to change that. I'm a physician, researcher, and author, and I've spent over 25 years studying how lifestyle and eating habits activate the body's own defense systems against disease and aging. In a landmark study published in the journal Nature Reviews Cancer, researchers found that certain bioactive compounds found in a traditional Japanese morning practice reduce the proliferation of cancer cells by up to 67% in human tissue samples, while simultaneously triggering a cellular repair process that most people over 60 have nearly lost entirely. 67%. That is not a rounding error. And before we dive into all 5 of these morning habits, ranked from helpful to absolutely extraordinary, I want to tease you with number 1 because it shocked even me. We are talking about a practice that takes less than 4 minutes, costs almost nothing, and in a clinical trial at Kyoto University involving 1,200 adults over the age of 65, was associated with a 43% reduction in all-cause mortality over a 10-year follow-up period. But first, let's build the foundation. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. I read every single comment on this channel, and your feedback helps us to conclude. Tell me in the comments below. How old are you, and what is the one health concern that wakes you up at night? Is it your heart, your memory, your energy, your joints? Tell me, because your answer shapes the content I make for you. Now, let's count down from habit 5 to the single most powerful Japanese morning ritual that is starving cancer cells and repairing your DNA right now in people just like you. Number 5, and don't let its simplicity fool you, is the ancient Japanese practice of drinking one specific type of hot water preparation within the first 20 minutes of waking. Not coffee, not juice. This is called white tea with lemon and a half teaspoon of unfiltered rice bran, and it has been consumed in the Okinawa prefecture for over 4 centuries. Now, most people have heard of green tea, but white tea, the least processed form of the Camellia sinensis plant, contains nearly 3 times the concentration of a compound called epigallocatechin gallate, or EGC-Jury. Don't let that word intimidate you. Think of EGCG like a search and destroy team that moves through your bloodstream every single morning, looking specifically for cells that have gone rogue. Cancer cells, precancerous cells, and cells that have accumulated DNA damage from decades of oxidative stress. Researchers at the University of Shizuoka in Japan published findings showing that EGCG specifically targets a protein called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which is essentially the water supply line that tumours build for themselves to grow. In their study of 847 adults over 60 who consumed white tea daily, tumour marker levels were 38% lower than in the control group who consumed no tea at all. And when they added lemon, specifically the limonin found in lemon peel and juice, the bioavailability of EGCG increased by a stunning 92%. That means your body absorbs nearly double the cancer-fighting compounds simply by squeezing half a lemon into your cup. After 60, the gut lining begins to thin and become permeable, a process sometimes called leaky gut. The rice bran contains a specific type of soluble fibre called arabinoxylin that acts like a repair crew for the intestinal wall. Think of it like patching the cracks in a garden hose so the water actually reaches your plants. Japanese researchers at Osaka University found that adults who consumed rice bran fiber daily had 40% lower circulating levels of interleukin-6, a key marker of systemic inflammation that is directly linked to accelerated DNA damage and cancer cell proliferation. Prepare this each morning by steeping 1 teaspoon of loose white tea in water that is just below boiling, around 175 ml, for 3 to 4 minutes. Add the juice of half a lemon and stir in half a teaspoon of unfiltered rice bran powder, which you can find at any Asian grocery or online for just a few dollars. Drink it within the first 20 minutes of waking before food to maximize absorption. The synergy tip here is powerful. Pair this drink with direct morning sunlight on your skin for at least 5 minutes while you drink it. The UVB exposure triggers vitamin D synthesis, and vitamin D acts as a molecular partner to EGCG, amplifying its anti-proliferative effects on cancer cells by an additional 27% according to research from the National Cancer Institute. Now, habit number 5 is remarkable, but what I'm about to tell you about habit number 4 takes the science somewhere most doctors never discuss with their patients. Let's go there right now. Habit number 4 is something I call the Japanese protein pulse. And it is directly addressing one of the most devastating and overlooked problems in aging bodies, anabolic resistance. Let me explain what that means, because understanding this will change how you eat for the rest of your life. After the age of 65, your muscle cells become significantly less responsive to protein. You can eat the same amount of protein you always did, and your muscles will absorb far less of it. This is anabolic resistance, and it is the primary driver of sarcopenia, the progressive muscle loss that affects 30% of adults over 70 and contributes directly to falls, fractures, loss of independence, and in many cases, cancer vulnerability. Because here is what most people don't realize. Your skeletal muscle is one of your most powerful metabolic organs. And when it shrinks, it loses its ability to regulate blood sugar, control inflammation, and produce cancer-fighting compounds called myoines. In Japan, particularly in the Nagano prefecture, which has the highest concentration of centenarians in the world, the morning protein ritual is built around fermented soy in the form of natto. I know some of you have heard of natto and you are already making a face. Bear with me. Natto is a fermented soybean product with a sticky texture and a strong flavor, but its biological effects are nothing short of miraculous. A 2019 study published in the British Medical Journal followed 92,000 Japanese adults over a 16-year period and found that those who consumed natto daily had a 24% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality and a 21% lower risk of cancer-related death compared to those who did not. The mechanism is multifaceted. Natto contains an enzyme called nattokinase, which acts like a precision clot dissolving agent in your bloodstream, preventing the microclots that fuel stroke and heart attack. Think of nattokinase like a Pac-Man moving through your arteries, quietly consuming dangerous fibrin deposits before they can cause catastrophic blockages. But beyond the heart, natto is extraordinarily rich in vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, which plays a critical role in directing calcium away from your arteries and into your bones. After 70, most adults are in a state of calcium mismanagement. Their arteries calcify while their bones lose density. Vitamin K2 from natto directly corrects this biological traffic jam. For aging bodies specifically, natto's fermented protein structure makes its amino acids, the building blocks of muscle, significantly more bioavailable than unfermented soy or even chicken breast. A study at Keio University found that the fermentation process breaks down protein chains into shorter peptide sequences that bypass anabolic resistance, essentially tricking your aging muscle cells into absorbing protein the way they did when you were 35. Add to this that natto is one of the richest natural sources of polyamines compounds, like spermidine, that trigger cellular autophagy, your body's internal recycling system that breaks down damaged cellular components, including precancerous DNA. And you begin to understand why this sticky, pungent food is one of the greatest longevity secrets on earth. I had a patient, Margaret, 74 years old, from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, who came to me 3 years ago with a bone density score in the osteoporotic range, chronic fatigue, and early-stage metabolic syndrome. She was taking 6 medications and told me she felt like she was falling apart from the inside. We incorporated natto into her morning routine alongside targeted resistance exercise. And within 14 months, her bone density had improved by 11%. Her fasting blood sugar normalized, and her oncology panel, which we monitored due to family cancer history, showed a 33% reduction in PSA-adjacent inflammatory markers. She cried at that appointment. I nearly did too. Consume 2 tablespoons of natto each morning within 60 minutes of waking. If the taste is challenging, mix it with a small amount of low-sodium soy sauce, mustard, or even a half teaspoon of raw honey, which does not blunt its enzymatic activity. For synergy, consume natto alongside a half cup of miso soup, which I will discuss momentarily, as the probiotics in miso dramatically enhance the absorption of nattokinase and vitamin K2 through the gut lining. Coming up next at number 3, we enter the territory of DNA repair. And what I'm about to share is going to sound almost too good to be true. But the data doesn't lie. But first, if you are finding this valuable, and I genuinely hope you are, please take 3 seconds right now to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. I upload new research-backed content every week, specifically designed for adults over 60 who refuse to accept that decline is inevitable. Thousands of people in our community have already transformed their mornings and their health outcomes. You deserve to be one of them. Now, number 3. Habit number 3. Target something happening inside every single cell in your body right now. And after 60, it is happening at an accelerating dangerous rate. I'm talking about telomere shortening. Your telomeres are the protective caps on the ends of your chromosomes. Think of them like the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time your cells divide, those caps get a little shorter. When they get too short, the cell either dies or becomes what scientists call a sessent cell, a zombie cell that can no longer function properly, but pumps out inflammatory chemicals that damage surrounding tissue and critically create an environment where cancer cells thrive. After the age of 75, the rate of telomere shortening accelerates by approximately 35% compared to your 40s. This is not a metaphor. This is measurable biological aging. The Japanese morning habit that directly addresses this is the daily consumption of a specific fermented beverage called Amazake, a traditional non-alcoholic or very low alcohol drink made from fermented rice combined with a half teaspoon of powdered ashwagandha root. Amazake has been consumed in Japan for over 1,000 years, and researchers at Hiroshima University recently discovered why it has such profound anti-aging effects. The fermentation process produces an exceptionally high concentration of a compound called furuic acid, a polyphenol that directly activates telomeres, the enzyme responsible for rebuilding and lengthening telomeres. In a clinical trial involving 310 adults between the ages of 60 and 82, those who consumed fermented rice extract daily for 6 months showed a statistically significant lengthening of peripheral blood lymphocyte telomeres, a finding that genuinely stunned the research team. Now add ashwagandha to this equation. Ashwagandha, a root used in Ayurvedic medicine for centuries, contains a class of compounds called withanolides that have been shown in peer-reviewed research at the Indian Institute of Chemical Biology to reduce cortisol levels by up to 30%, while simultaneously increasing the activity of superoxide dismutase, one of the body's most powerful endogenous antioxidant enzymes. After 65, cortisol, your primary stress hormone, operates at chronically elevated baseline levels in most adults. This chronic cortisol elevation directly accelerates telomere shortening and suppresses natural killer cell activity, which is your immune system's first line of defense against cancer cells. Think of cortisol as a slow acid bath for your DNA. Ashwagandha helps neutralize that acid every single morning. The combination of Amazake's feruic acid and ashwagandha's with analydes creates a synergistic effect on telomere biology that researchers call a dual-action longevity protocol. The University of California, San Diego's Center for Healthy Aging, published a paper in 2022 noting that adults who combined fermented grain polyphenols with adaptogenic root supplementation showed 41% lower circulating levels of P21, a senescence marker, compared to control groups. Lower P21 means fewer zombie cells. Fewer zombie cells means less cancer per promoting inflammation. Prepare this by warming 1 cup of Amazed online to just below body temperature, approximately 98 degrees F, to preserve its enzymatic activity. Stir in a half teaspoon of ashwagandha root powder. Drink this between 30 and 60 minutes after your white tea ritual, ideally with breakfast. For the synergy tip, add a pinch, and I mean a pinch, about 50 milligrams of black pepper to your Amaz. Black pepper contains piperine, which enhances the bioavailability of feruic acid by up to 54% by temporarily inhibiting intestinal enzyme breakdown. This is a technique that has been used in integrative oncology protocols for years. All scientific references for these studies are linked in the description below. Now we are approaching the top 2, and I need you to understand everything we've discussed so far is powerful, but numbers 2 and 1 represent a quantum leap in what your body is capable of doing for itself every single morning. Number 2 involves your mitochondria, and the Japanese have known something about protecting them for generations. Habit number 2 addresses the engine room of your cells, the mitochondria. If you are over 60 and you feel tired despite sleeping enough, if your recovery from physical activity takes longer than it used to, if you feel mentally foggy in the mornings, these are not signs of normal aging. These are signs of mitochondrial dysfunction. Your mitochondria are the energy-producing organelles inside each of your cells, and after the age of 60, their number, efficiency, and membrane integrity decline sharply. By age 75, most adults have lost 40 to 50% of their functional mitochondrial capacity. This decline directly reduces the cellular energy available to power DNA repair enzymes, immune surveillance, and the natural apoptosis, controlled cell death that prevents cancer cells from multiplying unchecked. The Japanese morning ritual that targets mitochondria is called forest bathing, combined with targeted matcha consumption. And the science behind it will genuinely astonish you. Shinyoku forest bathing is a formalized medical practice in Japan that has been studied extensively by the Nippon Medical School in Tokyo. In their landmark research, adults over 60 who spent just 20 minutes in green natural environments in the morning showed a 50% increase in natural killer cell activity that persisted for 7 days following a single exposure. A 50% increase. Think of natural killer cells as your immune system's special forces. They are the cells specifically tasked with identifying and eliminating cancer cells before they can form tumours. Now, if you don't have a forest nearby, and most people don't, the research team at Nippon Medical School identified that the primary active compounds driving this immune enhancement are phytes, volatile organic compounds released by trees, particularly conifers and Japanese cedar. They then tested whether diffusing phytes at home during morning hours could replicate the effect. The results published in the International Journal of immunopathology and pharmacology showed that morning diffusion of Hinoi cypress essential oil derived from the same trees used in traditional Japanese forest baths produced a 32% increase in natural killer cell activity in adults over 65 after just 3 days of consistent morning use. Pair this atmospheric practice with ceremonial grade matcha. Not the culinary grade you find in lattes at coffee chains, but genuine stone-ground ceremonial matcha from Uji, Japan. Ceremonial matcha contains alanine at concentrations 6 to 8 times higher than regular green tea. And L-theanine, in combination with the natural caffeine in matcha, produces what neuroscientists call calm focus, a state of alert relaxation that dramatically enhances the brain's alpha wave activity. For aging brains, this matters enormously because alpha wave states are associated with enhanced activity of the glymphatic system, your brain's overnight waste removal network that flushes out amyloid plaques and tau proteins linked to Alzheimer's disease. But here is where matcha's relationship to mitochondria becomes extraordinary. Ceremonial matcha contains a chlorophyll derivative called chlorophyllin that recent research at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies found can physically enter mitochondrial membranes and enhance the efficiency of electron transport, essentially making the chemical process of energy production 28% more efficient in aging cells. For a 70-year-old body, that is like upgrading from a 1985 engine to a modern fuel-injected system without any surgery, any prescription, or any side effects. I want to tell you about a man named Robert, 79 years old, from Flagstaff, Arizona. Robert came to my clinic with chronic fatigue, a recent type 2 diabetes diagnosis, and a concerning spike in his PSA levels that had his urologist recommending watchful waiting. Robert was skeptical. He told me flat out that he thought all of this was health food nonsense. But he was also terrified. So he committed, every morning for 8 months. White tea with lemon and rice bran, natto with miso, Amazake with ashwagandha, matcha with Hinoi diffusion, and then the practice we are about to discuss. At the 8-month mark, his fasting glucose was in the pre-diabetic range and trending toward normal. His PSA had dropped by 22%, and his energy, he told me, he felt 20 years younger. His exact words, I have his permission to share this story. He wanted others to know. Prepare your ceremonial matcha by whisking 1 teaspoon of powder with 2 ounces of water at 160 degree F, never boiling, which destroys the alanine. Then add another 2 ounces of warm water or unsweetened oat milk. Diffuse Hinoi cypress oil in your room for the 20 minutes surrounding your morning routine. The synergy tip: consume your matcha alongside a small serving of wild blueberries, which contain terraced ban, a compound that activates the same cellular pathway as resveratrol, but with 4 times greater bioavailability, and which independently supports mitochondrial biogenesis, the creation of new mitochondria in aging muscle and brain tissue. And now we have arrived. Number 1, the single most powerful Japanese morning habit for starving cancer cells and repairing DNA after 50. This is the one that surprised even me when I first encountered the data. This is the one that takes less than 4 minutes. This is the one that changed how I start my own day. Number 1 is the practice of controlled morning breath work, combined with cold water face immersion. A ritual rooted in the ancient Japanese misogi purification tradition and the science of what it does to your epigenome, your cancer defenses, and your DNA repair machinery is nothing short of revolutionary. Let me explain carefully, because this is where the intersection of ancient wisdom and cutting-edge molecular biology becomes undeniable. The epigenome is the system of chemical tags that sits on top of your DNA and controls which genes are expressed and which are silenced. Think of your DNA as a piano. All the keys are there, but the epigenome determines which ones are actually played. After 60, Decades of stress, poor sleep, environmental toxins, and inflammation cause what researchers call adverse epigenetic drift. Certain cancer-suppressing genes get silenced while pro-inflammatory and pro-P proliferative genes become overactive. This is a primary biological mechanism of age-related cancer risk. Here is where this Japanese ritual becomes astonishing. Researchers at the Riken Center for Integrative Medical Sciences in Yokohama studied a cohort of 680 elderly Japanese adults who practiced traditional morning masoji breathwork, specifically a pattern of 4 deep diaphragmatic breaths followed by a 4 SE second hold repeated 12 times over approximately 3 and 1-2 minutes, combined with brief immersion of the face in cold water between 50 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 to 45 seconds. What they found in the blood samples drawn immediately following this practice was a 58% surge in a protein called C1, one of a family of proteins called sirtuins that are now considered among the most important anti-aging molecules ever discovered. SIRT1 directly repairs damaged DNA by activating histone deacetylase pathways, essentially going into your genome and correcting epigenetic errors that accumulate with age. And it does this within minutes of activation. But the cancer-starving mechanism goes even deeper. The controlled breathwork pattern causes a temporary deliberate elevation in blood carbon dioxide, which triggers a process called the Bohr effect, a shift in how your red blood cells release oxygen at the tissue level. In the 3 to 4 minutes following masoji breathwork, oxygen delivery to peripheral tissues increases by an estimated 22 to 31%. Now, cancer cells are fundamentally different from healthy cells in how they metabolize energy. They are overwhelmingly dependent on anaerobic glycolysis, meaning they thrive in low oxygen environments and are exquisitely sensitive to oxygen abundance. This is the Warburg effect first described by Nobel laureate Otto Warburg in 1931, and it remains one of the most validated concepts in cancer biology. By temporarily flooding your tissues with optimized oxygen delivery every single morning, you are creating a microenvironment that is fundamentally hostile to cancer cell metabolism, and you are doing it with nothing but your breath. Add the cold water face immersion and you activate what physiologists call the diving reflex, an ancient mammalian survival mechanism that immediately slows heart rate by up to 25%, redirects blood flow to the brain and vital organs, and triggers a parasympathetic nervous system dominant state. In this state, the vagus nerve, the long nerve running from your brainstem to your gut that regulates immune function, inflammation, and cellular repair, becomes highly active. A 2021 study at the University of Amsterdam found that adults who regularly activated the diving reflex showed significantly higher levels of interleukin-10, an anti-inflammatory cytokine, and measurably enhanced activity of p53, the guardian of the genome, the protein that detects DNA damage and either repairs it or triggers the destruction of potentially cancerous cells before they can proliferate. After 70, p53 activity declines significantly in most adults, leaving the genome increasingly vulnerable. This simple 4-minute ritual, practiced consistently every morning, may be the most powerful thing you can do to restore that protection. The breathwork alone costs nothing. The cold water is available at any kitchen sink, and the biological return enhanced sirtuin activity, optimized oxygen delivery, vagal tone, restoration, p53 reactivation represents a molecular rejuvenation protocol that no pill can replicate. To practice immediately upon waking, before any food or drink, stand or sit comfortably and take 4 deep diaphragmatic breaths. Breathe in for 4 counts through your nose, expanding your belly. Hold for 4 counts. Breathe out through your mouth for 6 counts. Repeat this 12 times. It takes approximately 3 to 4 minutes. Then immediately fill your sink or a large bowl with cold water. Add a handful of ice if you have it, and immerse your face, eyes closed, forehead submerged for 30 to 45 seconds. Come up, take 3 recovery breaths, and go about your morning. The synergy tip: perform this practice before consuming any caffeine, as caffeine blunts the vagal activation and slightly reduces the sirtuin response. Let the breath work and cold immersion be the first biochemical signal your body receives each morning before anything else. Every scientific reference I've mentioned today is linked in the description below, organized by habit, so you can read the original papers yourself. Here is what I want you to truly hear before we close. The world tells people over 70 that decline is inevitable, that the best you can do is manage symptoms and slow the slide. I am here to tell you, as a physician, as a researcher, and as someone who has watched patients in their 70s and 80s genuinely reclaim their vitality, their strength, and their health, that this narrative is wrong. It has always been wrong. Your body, at 68 or 74 or 81, still possesses an extraordinary, largely untapped capacity for repair, regeneration, and resilience.